20 years ago, nobody gave a stuff about cars like this. Now they're preserved for posterity and change hands for thousands. But if you're one of those old car buffs like me that got a sinking feeling when you watched all those magic motors catapult out of reach, then I've got a bit of solace for you. Let's try a bit of lateral thinking, and instead of dwelling on the classics of the 60s, what about the classics of the 80s?
In the 80s, what we really saw was the estate kids of the 50s and 60s growing up. It's their chance, it's their world. Did they reject it? No, they went for it. The go-go 80s.
So which are the happening classics of the go-go 80s? Well, try these three. Lancia's rally-bred Delta Integrale, Peugeot's 1.9 205 GTI and Saab's mold-breaking 900 Turbo. The blown 900 pioneered turbocharging and was one of the last proper Saabs built before General Motors took control. If this isn't a classic, then I don't know what is. The 900 Turbo has an awful lot to recommend it as a classic choice because it's built to take on Sweden. They really are wonderfully put together. I had a 900 Turbo which had done 195,000 miles and was as fresh as a daisy. Prices of these things start at about £2,000. They're not that expensive to run. They really do go on and on. So long-term ownership is a very viable proposition. And as far as driving a 900 Turbo goes, it is enormous fun. You can trickle along feeling respectable and middle-aged, or plonk your foot right down to the Axminster. The turbo will cut in with a bit of lag, and then whoosh, you are off. Very, very quick car, wonderful in the snow. Remember where they come from, Sweden. There is nothing that gets through the snow better than a 900 Turbo. Here you ask, why is the Peugeot 205 being held as a classic when it was made in such prodigious numbers? Well, because the term classic is all about being the best, being the foremost. And okay, the Golf GTI was the seminal hot hatch of the 80s, but of all the GTI pretenders, all the GTI imitators, the 205 GTI was the best. You'd have to go all the way back to the Mini Cooper to find a car that turned in so crisply, a car that handled so wonderfully. And the 80s were all about super minis, all about tiny cars. So Peugeot took their class-beating 205 and they dropped this huge 1.9-litre engine. They lit the blue touch paper, they stood back, and they watched. It was so quick it should have had a government health warning. It's every inch a classic. Its Pininfarina styling was admired by 80s design worshippers who holidayed in Florence and dined at Japanese sushi restaurants. Best news is Hot 205s start from as little as £2,000. They have loose change running costs, and since good design is timeless, this is one hot hatch that won't go down the slippery slope of the XR3. But if you want some serious heave, you better have a Lancia Delta Integrale. The best car Lancia ever made had four-wheel drive, a turbocharger, and a 0 to 60 time quicker than a Jaguar E-Type. And because this is one of the last and finest Lancias ever imported into the UK, car collectors are likely to get very hot and bothered. It trounced all the opposition in 6 World Rally Championships, and though this helped Lancia's reputation, it didn't do much for sales. They withdrew from the UK last year. They might all be left-hand drive, but the Integrale stands as one of the quickest ways across country next to a Scud missile. Yours for around £5,000, it's handsome, race-bred, Italian, and devilishly quick. Perfect classic credentials. So there you go, 3 pieces of 80s ephemera that soon will have greatness thrust upon them. Mark my words, in 10 years, maybe even 5, these 3 cars could be gracing the front covers of classic car magazines. People might even be making television programs about them. But a word of warning. Classic cars are not investments. By the time you've put petrol in them, taxed them, insured them, stored them, looked after them, serviced them, you will have lost money. But at least with these 3, they won't shed their value like dandruff. Now, I know what you're thinking. Which one would I take home? Which one would I put in mothballs and cotton wool? Well, none of them, because I've saved the best till last, because history tells us that convertible Jaguars always become classics.